In the forgotten ages of ancient India, when kingdoms rose and fell beneath golden skies, there lived 4 brothers in a small and humble town. They were born into a Brahmin family, a lineage once honored for wisdom and spiritual practice. Yet despite their noble heritage, their lives were filled with hardship. Their homes were empty, their fields were barren, and every morning they woke up wondering how they would survive another day. The 4 brothers watched others around them gather wealth, build houses, and enjoy comfort, while they struggled with hunger and uncertainty. At night, when the lamps burned low and silence covered the town, the brothers often sat together and spoke about their suffering. The eldest brother sighed, "We have spent our whole lives waiting for fortune to change, but poverty continues to follow us. If we remain here, our condition will never improve." The second brother nodded. "Our ancestors left us wisdom, but wisdom alone cannot fill an empty stomach. Perhaps destiny is waiting somewhere beyond this place." The third brother looked toward the distant mountains. Many people have found opportunity by traveling far from their birthplace. Perhaps we must also leave behind what we know and search for a better life. The youngest brother listened carefully. Although he was quiet, a powerful desire burned within his heart. Finally, the 4 brothers made a decision. They would leave their hometown and travel across the vast lands of India in search of fortune. The next morning, they packed their few belongings and began their journey. They walked through forests, crossed rivers, and passed through villages where strangers lived lives completely different from their own. They endured hunger, exhaustion, and uncertainty, but they continued forward because they believed that somewhere ahead, their fate would change. After many days of traveling, they arrived at the bank of a great river. Near the river stood an ancient temple dedicated to Lord Shiva. The temple walls were covered with moss, and the air around it carried a feeling of deep peace. Travelers often stopped there to pray, seeking guidance before continuing their journeys. The 4 brothers entered the temple and offered their respects. They prayed, "May we find a way to escape suffering. May we discover the opportunity that destiny has hidden from us." At that moment, they noticed a holy man sitting nearby. He was a yogi who had spent many years in meditation and spiritual practice. His body was thin from discipline, but his eyes were calm and bright, carrying the wisdom of someone who had seen beyond ordinary desires. The brothers approached him and explained their situation. They told him about their poverty, their struggles, and their hope of finding wealth. The yogi listened silently. He did not judge their wish for a better life. Instead, he looked upon them with compassion. After a moment, he reached into his robe and took out 4 small pieces of oil lamp wick. He placed one wick into each brother's hand. The brothers looked at the simple objects with confusion. The yogi smiled and said, "Walk toward the Himalayas. Carry these wicks with you. When one of them falls from your hand, stop at that place and dig into the earth. Beneath the ground, you will find treasure." The brothers were astonished. The yogi continued, "But remember one thing. When you find treasure, be satisfied. Take what has been given to you and return home. Do not allow endless desire to lead you further." His voice became serious. Many people suffer not because they have nothing, but because they cannot recognize when they already have enough. The four brothers bowed deeply. They thanked the yogi and continued their journey toward the great Himalayan mountains. They did not know that the road ahead would reveal not only hidden treasures beneath the earth, but also the hidden desires within their own hearts. The four brothers continued their journey toward the distant Himalayas. Every step carried them farther away from the familiar world they had known. Behind them was their small hometown, where poverty had surrounded them for years. Ahead of them was an unknown path filled with possibility. They carried little food and few possessions, but each brother held something far more valuable in his hand, the mysterious oil lamp wick given by the yogi. They protected the small wicks carefully, believing that these simple objects held the power to change their destiny. During the day, they walked beneath the burning sun. At night, they rested beneath ancient trees, looking at the stars above and imagining the life they would have once they found wealth. The eldest brother often reminded them, "Remember the words of the holy man. We must not lose our wisdom when fortune arrives." The others agreed. But each person carried a different dream inside their heart. The eldest brother dreamed of returning home with enough money to live peacefully. The second brother imagined rebuilding their family's reputation and creating a stable household. The third brother wished to gain great wealth and become respected by everyone. The youngest brother, however, remained silent. Whenever the others spoke about returning home, he looked toward the endless mountains. Deep inside, he wondered, what if the greatest treasure is waiting farther ahead? What if the first treasure we find is only the beginning? Although he did not speak these thoughts aloud, they were slowly taking root in his mind. After traveling for many days, something unexpected happened. One morning, as the brothers walked along a narrow mountain path, the eldest brother suddenly stopped. He looked down. The oil lamp wick in his hand had fallen onto the ground. The three younger brothers immediately remembered the yogi's instructions. The treasure must be here. They began digging into the earth. At first, they found only rocks and soil. But as they dug deeper, their tools struck something hard beneath the ground. They cleared away the dirt and discovered an old clay jar. The brothers' hearts began to race. They opened the jar carefully. Inside were countless copper coins shining in the sunlight. For a moment, nobody spoke. After years of poverty, the sight of so much wealth felt like a miracle. The eldest brother touched the coins with trembling hands. He had never seen so much money in his entire life. He imagined repairing their old house. He imagined having enough food every day. He imagined living without fear of tomorrow. A smile appeared on his face. "My brothers," he said, "the yogi's words have come true. This is already more than enough for me." The younger brothers looked at him. The eldest continued, "With these copper coins, I can return home and live peacefully. I do not need to chase after something greater." The youngest brother looked surprised. "Brother, are you truly satisfied with copper?" The eldest brother nodded. "Yes. Perhaps others may think this treasure is small compared with what may exist in the world. But happiness does not come from having the most. Happiness comes from knowing when we have enough." The youngest brother remained silent. He looked at the copper coins, then looked toward the mountains ahead. A thought appeared in his mind: copper is only the first treasure. If we continue forward, perhaps we will find something much greater. The eldest brother noticed his expression. "My brother," he said gently, "do not forget the warning of the yogi. A person who cannot stop walking may never reach peace, even after finding treasure." But the youngest brother did not answer. The second and third brothers helped the eldest brother collect the copper coins. They then watched as he began his journey back home. Before leaving, the eldest brother turned around and said, "May all of us find what we are truly seeking." The three brothers waved goodbye. Soon, the eldest brother disappeared along the path, carrying his treasure and his contentment. The remaining three brothers continued toward the Himalayas. They walked deeper into the wilderness. The youngest brother kept thinking about the treasure that might exist beyond copper. He did not realize that the first test had already appeared. The yogi had not truly been testing whether they could find treasure. He was testing whether they could recognize peace when treasure arrived. The eldest brother had found more than copper coins. He had found freedom from endless desire. The three brothers continued their journey after saying farewell to their eldest brother. The road ahead became more difficult. The comfortable paths near villages disappeared, replaced by rocky trails and endless forests. The mountains grew taller, the air became colder, and every step required greater effort. Yet the three brothers continued walking. They believed that destiny was still waiting for them. The youngest brother especially felt a growing excitement inside his heart. He kept thinking about the treasure his eldest brother had found. Copper coins. It was already enough to change a person's life. But in his mind, copper was only the beginning. He wondered, if the earth gives copper to the first person, what greater treasure might appear next? If we continue forward, perhaps we will discover something beyond imagination. The second brother noticed that the youngest brother often looked toward the distant mountains. He asked, "Why do you always look so far ahead?" The youngest brother smiled. "I am only wondering what destiny has prepared for us." The third brother laughed. "Perhaps there are treasures greater than copper waiting for us." The three brothers continued their journey with hope in their hearts. Several days passed. One morning, as they crossed a valley surrounded by ancient trees, the second brother suddenly stopped. His hand felt empty. He looked down. The oil lamp wick had fallen. The brothers immediately understood. This was the place where the second treasure was hidden. They began digging beneath the earth. At first, the soil was dry and hard. But after some effort, they discovered another buried container. The second brother opened it carefully. Inside was a large amount of silver. The sunlight reflected from the silver surface, filling their eyes with brightness. Compared with the copper coins found by the eldest brother, this treasure seemed far more precious. The second brother stood quietly for a long time. He imagined what he could do with this wealth. He could build a beautiful house. He could restore his family's honor. He could live without the humiliation of poverty. Finally, he smiled. "My brothers, I have found what I need." The youngest brother looked at him with curiosity. "You also want to stop here?" The second brother nodded. "Yes. Silver is more than enough for me." He touched the shining treasure and said, "Perhaps there are treasures more valuable than silver somewhere in the world. But I have learned something from our eldest brother. Life is not a race to collect everything. If a person always believes that the next treasure is better, he will spend his entire life chasing shadows." The youngest brother listened but remained unconvinced. Inside his heart, another thought appeared: silver is greater than copper. Then what comes after silver? Surely there must be something even more precious. The third brother looked at the youngest brother. "You are thinking about continuing, aren't you?" The youngest brother did not deny it. "Yes. I believe there is still something beyond this." The second brother sighed. "My brother, remember the yogi's warning. Treasure itself is not dangerous. The danger comes when the heart refuses to be satisfied." But the youngest brother only looked toward the mountains. He saw not danger. He saw possibility. The second brother collected the silver and prepared to leave. Before departing, he turned toward his brothers. "May you find peace in whatever you discover." Then he walked back toward their homeland. The brothers watched him disappear. Now only two remained: the third brother and the youngest brother. The wilderness became quieter. The journey became lonelier. But the youngest brother felt more determined than ever. He believed that he was getting closer to the greatest treasure. The third brother, however, began to wonder. He remembered the words of the yogi. Perhaps the greatest challenge was not finding treasure. Perhaps the greatest challenge was knowing when to stop. Days passed. The two brothers continued climbing higher. The forests became thinner. The mountains appeared larger. Snow covered the distant peaks. The world around them became silent and vast. Then one afternoon, something happened. The third brother's lamp wick slipped from his fingers. It fell gently onto the ground. The two brothers looked at each other. They knew. Another treasure was waiting beneath their feet. They began digging, but neither of them knew that the treasure waiting below would create the greatest temptation yet. Because the next treasure was no longer copper. It was not silver. It was gold. And gold has a way of awakening desires that people never knew existed. The two brothers continued digging beneath the mountain earth. The soil was heavy, and their hands became covered with dust. They had already discovered treasures twice before, so they knew that something valuable might be waiting below. But this time, the atmosphere felt different. The youngest brother watched with intense anticipation. His heart beat faster. He imagined what kind of treasure could appear after copper and silver. Perhaps something beyond anything they had ever seen. Perhaps a treasure that would make them richer than kings. The third brother continued digging silently. After a while, his tool struck something solid. The sound echoed through the quiet valley. They quickly cleared away the soil. A large chest appeared beneath the ground. The third brother's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was gold. Not a small amount. Not a few pieces. But countless golden ornaments, coins, and precious objects shining like captured sunlight. For a moment, the brothers could not speak. The golden light reflected on their faces. After a lifetime of poverty, they were standing before a fortune beyond their imagination. The third brother slowly picked up a piece of gold. Its weight felt real. Its brilliance was undeniable. He whispered, "Gold." The youngest brother stared at the treasure. Even he was amazed. This was different from copper. This was different from silver. This was the kind of wealth people dreamed about. The third brother smiled. "My brother, perhaps this is the treasure we were meant to find." He looked around at the golden chest. "With this wealth, we will never suffer again. We can build a great house. We can help our family. We can live with honor and comfort. Then he looked at his younger brother. Come, let us return home together. But the youngest brother did not move. His eyes remained fixed on the gold. The third brother noticed his silence. What is wrong? The youngest brother finally spoke. Brother, do you not wonder what lies beyond this? The third brother was confused. Beyond this? The youngest brother nodded. Think about it. First came copper. Then came silver. Now we have gold. Does that not prove that the farther we travel, the greater the treasure becomes? The third brother looked at him carefully. He understood. The same desire that had been growing inside the youngest brother had finally revealed itself. My brother, he said, do not let your imagination steal the happiness that is already in your hands. Gold is enough. The youngest brother shook his head. Enough? How can we know this is the highest treasure? Perhaps beyond the mountains there is something far greater. Perhaps there is a treasure more precious than gold itself. The third brother sighed. He remembered the yogi's warning. A person who always searches for more may lose what he already has. But the youngest brother could no longer see the wisdom in those words. His mind had already created a world beyond gold. A world where endless riches waited. The third brother tried one more time. Listen carefully. Gold can give you comfort, but it cannot give you peace. If your heart is always asking for more, even a mountain of gold will feel empty. The youngest brother remained silent. But his decision was already made. I must continue. The third brother looked at him with sadness. He did not argue anymore. Some lessons cannot be taught through words. They must be learned through experience. The third brother gathered the gold and prepared to return home. Before leaving, he turned back. My brother, I hope you find what you are searching for. The youngest brother bowed slightly. And I hope you enjoy the treasure you have found. The two brothers separated. One walked toward home carrying gold. The other walked deeper into the unknown carrying desire. The third brother's journey was ending. But the youngest brother's true journey was beginning. Because the greatest dangers in life are not always found in dark forests or dangerous mountains. Sometimes, the greatest dangers are hidden inside the human heart. The youngest brother continued alone. The path became narrower. The mountains became more silent. No companions walked beside him. No voices reminded him to stop. Only his own thoughts remained. At first, he felt powerful. He believed he had made the correct choice. He imagined discovering a treasure beyond gold. He imagined returning home as the richest person in the world. People would admire him. People would praise his determination. Everyone would say, he was the one who dared to continue when others stopped. But as days passed, exhaustion began to appear. His clothes became worn. His body became weak. His food became scarce. Yet his desire remained stronger than his tiredness. Every time he thought about turning back, another thought appeared, just a little farther. Maybe the greatest treasure is near. Do not stop now. The human mind is strange. Sometimes a person does not continue because the goal is truly valuable. Sometimes they continue simply because they have already traveled too far to admit they were wrong. The youngest brother did not know it yet. He was no longer chasing treasure. He was being chased by his own desire. The youngest brother continued his lonely journey through the mountains. Days turned into weeks. The golden treasure he had left behind became smaller and smaller in his memory, but the dream of something greater continued to grow. At first, his desire had seemed like ambition. He told himself, "I am not greedy. I am simply searching for the greatest opportunity. I am not refusing happiness. I am trying to discover a greater happiness." But slowly, without realizing it, his heart had changed. The desire to find more had become stronger than the wisdom to be satisfied. The warning of the yogi became distant in his memory. The voices of his brothers faded away. Only one thought remained: there must be something beyond gold. Every morning, he woke up and looked toward the endless mountains. Every evening, he rested beneath the cold sky and imagined the treasure waiting somewhere ahead. He imagined jewels brighter than stars. He imagined wealth greater than the riches of kings. He imagined returning home and proving that he had made the right choice. In his imagination, he was not a poor Brahmin anymore. He was someone extraordinary, someone who had reached what others could not. This dream gave him strength. But it also became a chain around his heart. The mountains became more dangerous. The gentle hills disappeared. Sharp rocks covered the path. Cold winds passed through the valleys. The youngest brother's body became weaker every day. His feet were covered with wounds. His face became thin from hunger. But he refused to stop. Whenever his body begged him to rest, his mind answered, "Not yet." When you have come this far, how can you return empty-handed? Perhaps the greatest treasure is just beyond the next mountain. This was the trap of endless desire. It always promised happiness in the future. It always whispered, just a little more. Just one more step. Just one more achievement. And because the promise was always tomorrow, the person could never experience peace today. The youngest brother did not realize that the treasure he was searching for had already disappeared. Not because someone took it away, but because his heart was no longer capable of receiving it. After many more days, he reached a place where even birds rarely flew. The trees became strange and twisted. The air felt heavy and silent. The path ahead was hidden beneath mist. The youngest brother stopped for a moment. For the first time in many days, doubt entered his mind. He looked back. The mountains behind him seemed endless. He wondered, how far have I traveled? How long has it been since I left my brothers? A small voice inside him asked, was the gold not enough? But another voice immediately answered, no. You cannot turn back now. You must find something greater. He continued walking. The conflict inside his heart grew stronger. One part of him was tired. One part of him wanted peace. But another part, filled with attachment and pride, refused to surrender. He was no longer walking toward treasure. He was walking away from the fear of admitting that he already had enough. The journey continued. One day. Then another. Then another. Until finally, after countless steps, something happened. The youngest brother felt his hand become strangely light. He looked down. The oil lamp wick was no longer in his hand. It had fallen. For a moment, his tired eyes widened. A wave of excitement rushed through him. The treasure. At last. My greatest fortune is here. He forgot his exhaustion. He forgot his loneliness. He forgot all warnings. With renewed energy, he began digging. The earth beneath his feet was different from before. It felt colder. Darker. He dug deeper. And deeper. His hands trembled with expectation. He imagined what he would find. Perhaps diamonds. Perhaps precious gems. Perhaps something that no human had ever discovered. His heart raced. The moment he had been waiting for had finally arrived, but destiny was not preparing a reward. It was preparing a lesson. The youngest brother cleared away the final layer of soil. Then he stopped. His smile disappeared. His breathing became frozen. Because beneath the earth, there was no treasure chest. No gold. No jewels. No wealth. Instead, there was a person. A terrifying figure sitting motionless in the darkness. A figure whose face carried endless suffering. And above his head, a massive iron wheel was spinning endlessly. The youngest brother stepped backward in fear. The wheel moved with a terrible sound. Round and round, without stopping. Without mercy. The man sat there silently, trapped beneath its endless movement. The youngest brother stared in disbelief. All his expectations collapsed. He whispered, "What is this? What kind of treasure is this?" The figure slowly opened his eyes. There was sadness in them. Not anger. Not hatred. Only the sadness of someone who had learned a painful truth too late. The youngest brother asked, "Who are you? Why is this iron wheel turning above your head?" The man looked at him quietly. Then he answered, "I am someone who once walked the same road as you." The youngest brother froze. The man continued, "I was also a seeker of treasure. I also believed that the next discovery would finally bring me complete happiness. I also believed that stopping meant losing." The wind became colder. The mountains became silent. And the youngest brother began to understand. The greatest treasure he had discovered was not outside himself. It was a mirror showing the condition of his own heart. The youngest brother stood frozen before the mysterious figure beneath the earth. The treasure he had dreamed of for so long was nowhere to be found. There were no diamonds. No mountains of gold. No precious jewels that could make him the wealthiest person in the world. Instead, he had discovered something far more frightening. A man trapped beneath an endless iron wheel. The wheel continued spinning above the man's head. Slowly. Painfully. Without a single moment of rest. The youngest brother looked closely. The man's clothes were torn. His face was pale. His eyes carried the exhaustion of someone who had suffered for countless years. Yet there was something strange. Although he was suffering, he did not look angry. He did not curse the world. He simply waited. As if he had already accepted his fate. The youngest brother gathered courage and stepped closer. "Tell me," he said. "Who are you? Why are you trapped here?" The man slowly raised his eyes. His voice was weak, but every word carried deep meaning. I am someone who once stood exactly where you are standing now. The youngest brother felt a chill. What do you mean? The man replied, many years ago, I was also a poor man searching for fortune. I also believed that wealth was the answer to all suffering. I also received a lamp wick from a holy person. The youngest brother's eyes widened. You had a lamp wick? Yes. Just like you. The man looked toward the endless mountains. I walked the same road. I found the same treasures. First, I discovered copper. Then silver. Then gold. The youngest brother's heart trembled. He realized this man's story was not a coincidence. It was his own path reflected in another person's life. The man continued, when I found gold, I believed I had reached the greatest treasure. I thought I would finally be satisfied. But then a thought appeared in my mind. If there is copper, then silver exists. If silver exists, then gold exists. So what must come after gold? The man lowered his head. That single question became the beginning of my suffering. The youngest brother remained silent. The iron will above the man's head continued turning. The sound filled the darkness. The man said, I continued forward, just as you did. I ignored the wisdom of those who warned me. I believed they lacked ambition. I believed they were satisfied because they were afraid to seek more. But I was wrong. His voice became heavier. I was not brave. I was simply unable to stop wanting. The youngest brother looked at the spinning wheel. What is this wheel? The man closed his eyes. This wheel is the shape of endless desire. It represents the hunger that can never be filled. When my heart refused to accept enough, this wheel appeared. It attached itself to me. And now it turns forever. The youngest brother asked, Can you not remove it? The man gave a sorrowful smile. No. Once desire completely controls the heart, freedom becomes impossible. You may escape from a prison made of stone. You may escape from chains made of iron. But escaping from your own endless craving is the most difficult prison of all. The words entered the youngest brother's heart like a cold wind. For the first time, he began to understand. The treasures he had chased were not the true danger. The danger was the belief that the next treasure would finally make him complete. The man continued, Do you know why I am still here? The youngest brother shook his head. Because someone must take my place. The youngest brother's face changed. What? The man looked directly at him. The wheel does not disappear. It only waits for another person whose desire has reached the same point. The youngest brother stepped backward. Fear entered his heart. No. The man continued, Every person who walks this road believes they are different. They think they can control desire. They think they will stop after finding something greater. But desire does not ask for permission. It grows quietly. First, it asks for a little. Then it demands everything. The youngest brother looked down at his own hands. He remembered his eldest brother. Copper had been enough. He remembered his second brother. Silver had been enough. He remembered his third brother. Even gold had been enough. Only he had continued. Only he believed that something greater must exist. A terrible realization began forming inside him. The treasure he wanted was never the problem. The problem was the endless hunger inside his own heart. The man looked at him with sadness. "Tell me, young traveler, why did you continue after finding gold?" The youngest brother opened his mouth. But no words came out. Because he finally understood the answer. He had no reason. He did not continue because he needed more. He continued because he wanted more. He did not walk because he lacked wealth. He walked because he could not accept satisfaction. The man said softly, "This is the lesson that I learned too late. A person who cannot appreciate what he has will never be happy with what he gains. Even if the entire world belongs to him, his heart will still search for another world." The youngest brother lowered his head. The pride that had carried him forward began to disappear. For the first time, he felt the weight of his own desire. The mountains around him became silent. The endless road behind him became meaningless. He finally saw the truth. He had not defeated poverty. He had only exchanged one form of suffering for another. The youngest brother stood before the man beneath the iron wheel, unable to speak. For many years, he had believed that the greatest suffering in life was poverty. He believed that money could remove sadness. He believed that wealth could bring freedom. He believed that once he possessed enough treasure, he would finally experience peace. But now, standing in front of this suffering man, he saw the truth. Wealth was not the enemy. poverty was not the only form of suffering. The greatest suffering came from a heart that could never say, enough. The iron wheel above the man continued spinning. Its sound echoed through the darkness. Each rotation seemed to carry the weight of countless desires. The youngest brother looked at the wheel with fear. "How long have you suffered here?" The man looked toward the endless sky above them. "I do not know. Time becomes meaningless when desire becomes your prison. Perhaps years have passed. Perhaps centuries. When the heart is trapped, even a single moment can feel endless." The youngest brother felt sorrow. He looked at the man and asked, "Is there truly no way to escape?" The man was silent for a long time. Then he said, "There was one way." The youngest brother looked up. "What way?" The man answered, "To understand before it was too late." The youngest brother lowered his eyes. The answer was simple. But it carried a painful truth. The man had not been trapped because he lacked knowledge. He had been trapped because he ignored wisdom. He had received warnings. He had been given opportunities to stop. But every time he reached a treasure, another desire appeared. The human heart often does not suffer because it has nothing. It suffers because it refuses to appreciate what it already has. The man continued speaking. "Do you know what happened to the people who traveled with me?" The youngest brother shook his head. "They returned home. Some found copper. Some found silver. Some found gold. And they stopped. They lived their lives peacefully." The youngest brother thought about his own brothers. His eldest brother was probably living peacefully with copper. His second brother was probably enjoying a stable life with silver. His third brother was probably surrounded by comfort because of gold. They had all found what they needed. Only he continued. Only he believed there must always be something beyond. The man looked at him. "You are still young. You still have the chance I lost." The youngest brother's heart tightened. "What chance?" "To stop before the will chooses you." The mountain wind moved through the dark valley. The youngest brother looked at the iron wheel. For the first time, he did not see treasure. He saw a warning. He saw his own future. He imagined the moment when he would discover another treasure. He imagined holding something greater than gold. Would he stop then? Or would another question appear? What comes after this? The answer terrified him. Because he finally understood. The problem was never the amount of treasure. The problem was the endless question that followed every treasure. A person who cannot find satisfaction will never reach the end of searching. The man beneath the wheel suddenly looked upward. His expression changed. "The time has come." The youngest brother felt a strange fear. "What do you mean?" The man answered, "The wheel has been waiting." The air became heavy. The iron wheel began spinning faster. The sound grew louder. The youngest brother stepped backward. "No." The man looked at him with compassion. "I am sorry. I cannot stop what must happen." The youngest brother felt something pulling toward him. An invisible force. A force created by countless desires accumulated over years. He tried to run, but his body would not move. He tried to resist, but his heart was already connected to the same desire that had trapped the man before him. The man whispered, "Remember this moment. Remember the lesson. May you understand what I failed to understand." The iron wheel lifted from the man's head. For one brief moment, everything became silent. Then the wheel moved. Through the darkness. Toward the youngest brother. The youngest brother closed his eyes. 1,000 memories appeared in his mind. His brothers. Their warnings. The yogi's compassionate words. The copper coins. The silver treasure. The golden chest. Every moment came back. He finally understood. The greatest treasure was not something hidden beneath the earth. It was the ability to recognize when life had already given enough. But this understanding came too late. The wheel reached him. And in an instant, it settled upon his head. The pain was overwhelming. The youngest brother cried out. But the mountains remained silent. No one heard. No one came. The same fate that had trapped another seeker now trapped him. The man who had suffered for countless years was finally free. He stood slowly. For the first time in ages, his head was free from the weight of the wheel. He looked at the youngest brother with sadness. "May you learn what I could not." Then he walked away into the mountains, leaving behind the endless cycle of desire. The youngest brother remained alone. The iron wheel continued turning, round and round. The treasure he had searched for his entire life was never found. Instead, he received the final lesson. A lesson written not in gold, not in silver, not in precious stones, but in suffering. And the lesson was simple: a person who is ruled by desire can never become truly rich. A person who knows contentment already possesses the greatest treasure. Many years passed after the youngest brother disappeared into the mountains. The people of his hometown slowly stopped speaking about him. Some wondered what had happened. Some believed he had discovered unimaginable wealth and chosen to live somewhere far away. Others whispered that he had become lost in the endless mountains. But no one truly knew the truth. Only the mountains knew. Only the silent valleys remembered the final lesson of the young man who chased treasure beyond treasure. Meanwhile, the three elder brothers lived very different lives. The eldest brother returned home with his copper coins. At first, some people laughed at him. They said, "Why did you stop at copper? Did you not know that greater treasures might exist beyond? You could have become much richer if you had continued." But the eldest brother simply smiled. He did not feel regret. He repaired his home. He provided food for his family. He lived with stability and peace. The copper coins were not the greatest treasure in the world. But they were enough to create a meaningful life. Every morning, he woke up with gratitude. Every evening, he rested with a peaceful heart. He had something that many wealthy people lacked: contentment. The second brother also returned home with his silver. Like his elder brother, he used his wealth wisely. He rebuilt his household. He helped those around him. He lived comfortably but never allowed wealth to control his heart. People often asked him, "Do you ever regret not searching for gold?" The second brother would smile. Gold may shine brighter than silver, but peace shines brighter than gold. What value is greater wealth if the heart remains restless? Those who heard his words often became thoughtful. Because they realized something important: a person does not become rich simply by owning many things. A person becomes rich when they can appreciate what they already have. The third brother returned with the golden treasure. His wealth was greater than that of his brothers. He built a beautiful home. He supported his family. He was respected throughout the region. But even with gold, he remembered the lesson from the journey. He never forgot his youngest brother. Sometimes, when he looked at the mountains in the distance, he wondered, "Where did my brother go? Did he find what he was searching for?" A sadness appeared in his heart. Because he knew the answer. The youngest brother had not lost because he failed to find treasure. He had lost because he could never recognize treasure when it appeared before him. Years later, the three brothers gathered together. They sat beneath the same ancient tree where they once discussed leaving their hometown. Their hair had turned gray. Their faces carried the marks of time. But their hearts were peaceful. They talked about their journey. They remembered the yogi who had helped them. They remembered the mysterious lamp wicks. They remembered the moment when their paths separated. The eldest brother said, "The holy man gave us more than a way to find wealth. He gave us a test." The second brother nodded. Yes. The treasure was never only beneath the earth. The true treasure was hidden inside our own hearts. The third brother looked toward the mountains. And my youngest brother failed to see it. A moment of silence followed. Then the eldest brother said gently, "Perhaps his story can teach others. Perhaps his suffering was not meaningless. Perhaps those who hear his story will learn before they walk the same road." Far away in the mountains, the wheel continued turning. The youngest brother remained trapped. But his story traveled across villages and kingdoms. Travelers told it around fires. Teachers shared it with students. Wise people repeated it to those who struggled with endless desire. They said, "Remember the four brothers. One found copper and stopped. One found silver and stopped. One found gold and stopped. One found a wheel." The lesson was not that wealth was evil. The lesson was not that people should reject success. The lesson was deeper. A person may seek a better life. A person may work hard. A person may accept opportunities. But they must know the difference between aspiration and greed. Aspiration creates growth. Greed creates suffering. Aspiration says, "I want to improve my life." Greed says, "What I have is never enough." The story of the four brothers spread because it revealed a truth hidden in human nature. People often believe happiness exists somewhere ahead. After earning more money. After gaining more recognition. After reaching another achievement. They tell themselves, "After this, I will finally be happy." But when that moment arrives, the mind creates another desire. Another mountain appears. Another treasure waits. Another destination calls. And the person continues walking. Not because they are searching for happiness, but because they have forgotten how to experience happiness where they are. The wise person understands, the greatest treasure is not always something we discover. Sometimes, it is something we finally learn to appreciate. Many years after the journey of the four Brahmin brothers, this story was remembered and shared among people seeking wisdom. It was not remembered because of the hidden treasures. It was not remembered because of the magical lamp wicks. It was remembered because it revealed the deepest nature of the human heart. The desire for more. The fear of not having enough. The endless search for something outside ourselves. One day, the Buddha was staying at Jataka monastery, surrounded by monks who had gathered to listen to his teachings. The peaceful atmosphere of the monastery was filled with silence. The gentle wind moved through the trees. The monks sat calmly before the Buddha, waiting for his words. Among them were many who were struggling with different forms of attachment. Some were attached to possessions. Some were attached to reputation. Some were attached to their own expectations of how life should be. The Buddha looked upon them with compassion. He understood that suffering does not always come from lacking something. Sometimes suffering comes from holding too tightly to the desire for something more. The Buddha said, "Monks, there was once a time when people searched for treasures beneath the earth, believing that gold and jewels could bring them lasting happiness. However, the greatest treasure is not hidden beneath the ground. The greatest treasure is found within a heart that understands contentment." Then the Buddha told them the story of the 4 Brahmin brothers. The monks listened carefully as the Buddha described the poor brothers who left their homeland searching for fortune. They heard about the compassionate yogi who gave them the magical lamp wicks. They heard the instruction, "When the wick falls, dig there. But when you receive treasure, know when to stop." The Buddha paused. Then he said, "The yogi's words were not only about finding material wealth. They were teachings about the human mind. The treasures beneath the earth represent the different levels of desire. Copper represents ordinary wishes. Silver represents greater ambitions. Gold represents powerful desires. But beyond all these treasures is a hidden danger. That danger is the belief that happiness always exists somewhere further away." The monks reflected deeply on these words. The Buddha continued, "The eldest brother found copper and understood that his needs were fulfilled. He did not become poor because he stopped. He became rich because he knew satisfaction. The second brother found silver and also understood the same truth. The third brother found gold and practiced wisdom by returning home. But the youngest brother continued because his desire had become stronger than his understanding." The Buddha looked at the monks. "Remember this. Desire itself is not the enemy. A person may wish to improve life. A person may work hard. A person may seek knowledge and wisdom. But when desire becomes endless, it becomes a chain. Like a person who drinks salty water, the more they drink, the greater their thirst becomes." The monks listened quietly. They understood. The problem was never the treasure. The problem was the heart that could never feel complete. The Buddha then explained the meaning of the iron wheel. The iron wheel is not only a punishment from the outside. It is the symbol of an inner condition. When the mind is controlled by endless craving, the person carries their own wheel. They may walk freely in the world. They may live in a beautiful house. They may possess great wealth. But inside, they remain trapped. The Buddha continued, "Some people think they will become peaceful after gaining more. They think, when I have enough money, I will be happy. When people respect me, I will be happy. When I achieve my goal, I will be happy." But after reaching one goal, another desire appears. Then another. And another. Until the person spends an entire lifetime chasing a happiness that was always within reach. The Buddha looked at the monks with kindness. The wise person does not reject the blessings of life. The wise person simply understands their place. Food can nourish the body. Wealth can provide comfort. Success can create opportunities. But none of these things alone can create inner peace. Peace comes from understanding. Peace comes from gratitude. Peace comes from knowing that this moment is already precious. The monks bowed respectfully. They understood that the Buddha was not teaching them to abandon the world. He was teaching them not to become prisoners of the world. A person may hold wealth in their hands, but they should not allow wealth to hold their heart. The Buddha concluded, "The greatest treasure is not what you can collect. The greatest treasure is what allows you to be free." The person who owns everything but cannot be satisfied is still poor. The person who has little but knows contentment is already wealthy. Therefore, cultivate wisdom. Practice gratitude. Understand the difference between wanting and needing. When the mind is peaceful, even a simple life becomes a treasure. The monks remained silent for a long time. The story of the four brothers stayed in their hearts. They remembered the eldest brother with copper. They remembered the second brother with silver. They remembered the third brother with gold. And they remembered the youngest brother beneath the iron wheel. Not with hatred. Not with judgment. But with compassion. Because every human being has the same choice. At every moment, we can continue chasing what we do not have. Or we can awaken to the value of what is already present. The treasure we seek may not be waiting at the end of the road. Perhaps it has been with us all along. The story of the four Brahmin brothers continued to travel across generations. It crossed villages. It crossed kingdoms. It crossed the boundaries of time. Because although the story happened in an ancient world, the lesson remained true for every generation. Human beings may change. The world may change. The things people desire may change. But the movement of the human heart remains the same. People still search. They search for wealth. They search for recognition. They search for success. They search for something they believe will finally make them complete. And yet, many discover the same truth that the four brothers discovered: the treasure outside can never completely satisfy a heart that is empty within. The eldest brother found copper. Some people may think he received the least. But in reality, he received something priceless. He received the wisdom to stop. He understood that life was not a race where the person who collected the most would become the winner. Life was a journey of learning what truly matters. His copper coins gave him a comfortable home. But his contentment gave him peace. The second brother found silver. He received more wealth than his elder brother. But more importantly, he received the same wisdom. He understood that comparison creates suffering. Someone will always have more. Someone will always possess something greater. If happiness depends on having more than others, happiness will always remain out of reach. The third brother found gold. He possessed the greatest treasure among his brothers. But his true treasure was not the gold itself. It was his ability to hold wealth without becoming controlled by it. He could enjoy prosperity while keeping his heart free. The youngest brother found something different. He searched for a treasure greater than gold. But what he discovered was not wealth. He discovered the truth about himself. He discovered that the greatest prison is not built from stone. It is built from endless desire. A person may escape from poverty. A person may escape from hardship. A person may escape from difficult circumstances. But if the mind remains trapped by greed, suffering follows wherever they go. The iron will was not created by an outside enemy. It was created by the endless hunger inside the heart. Every thought of more. Every refusal to accept enough. Every moment of believing, just one more thing, and then I will be happy, added another turn to the wheel. This ancient story gives a question to everyone who hears it: what are you truly searching for? Are you searching because something is truly necessary? Or are you searching because you have forgotten how to appreciate what already exists? There is nothing wrong with improvement. There is nothing wrong with dreams. There is nothing wrong with creating a better life. The problem begins when the desire for tomorrow destroys the peace of today. A person can work hard and still be peaceful. A person can have goals and still be grateful. a person can seek success and still remain free. The difference is not what we pursue. The difference is whether we become a servant of our desires. The Buddha taught that wisdom does not mean abandoning the world. Wisdom means seeing the world clearly. A wise person understands, money is useful. But money is not the source of happiness. Recognition is pleasant. But recognition is not the source of inner peace. Achievements are meaningful. But achievements are not the measure of a person's worth. The true treasure is the mind that remains calm in the middle of change. The heart that remains grateful in the middle of uncertainty. The person who can say, I have enough. Not because they have everything, but because they understand what truly matters. Imagine the four brothers standing before the yogi once again. The eldest brother would say, I found enough. The second brother would say, I found peace. The third brother would say, I found wealth without losing myself. The youngest brother, after countless years beneath the iron wheel, would finally understand, I was searching for a treasure outside me, but the greatest treasure was always within. The world continues to tell people, you need more. More money. More success. More attention. More achievements. More possessions. But wisdom asks a different question. What can you appreciate now? Because gratitude transforms what we already have into abundance. Without gratitude, even a palace feels empty. With gratitude, even a simple home becomes a sanctuary. The richest person is not always the one who owns the most. The richest person is often the one who needs the least to feel complete. The journey of the four Brahmin brothers is not only a story about treasure. It is a story about the human heart. It reminds us, the road of endless wanting has no final destination. The mountain of desire has no highest peak. The treasure of tomorrow can never replace the peace of today. So walk with wisdom. Dream with balance. Seek improvement without losing gratitude. And when life places a treasure in your hands, know when to stop. Know when to smile. Know when to say, this is enough. Because the greatest treasure is not something we find at the end of the road. It is the peace we discover within ourselves along the way.